A superhuman is someone who is self-aware and who cultivates their natural self. Each one of us are gifted with our unique observations, inclinations, and curiosities in life. The goal of the Superhuman Project is to help professionals become the best version of themselves and realize their full potential, to honor our natural selves. In each episode, I invite professionals at the top of their field and ask them questions about their quest for self-awareness. What makes them successful and how do they stay at the top of their game? Ultimately, it is about living a life we always wanted to live and not letting other people define it for us. Making sure we fulfill the potential that God has given us and we are living our best selves. Let's jump in. So Kathy, thank you so much for giving us time. This is our part 2 of the podcast we started recording, and I'm so excited to reintroduce Kathy to folks who are joining us at this point or who are continuing to listen. As we were talking, Kathy she's a dream professional for someone like me. She's a coach, she's a writer, she is a podcaster, she writes for so many media outlets, Forbes, Thrive Global, Huffington Post, on and on. And the thing that so far what we have discussed is bringing spirituality at work. So I know just looking at what in part 1, we spoke about what superhuman means to Kathy, and she gave a very good definition as to the definition of superhuman for her is all about enabling us human beings to acknowledge our human self and bring the whole of ourselves to wherever we go instead of living in parts. And we touched upon so many things. The thing that I would like to start with is, I know last when we were talking, you spoke about breaking things into small experiments or small tests. Like we were talking about, I think you made a comment, something called perfectionist over functioners. And then you were talking about looking at the natural gifts versus impulses. And so I would like you to unpack that for us in terms of how can one realize or how should one go about it in terms of doing these small experiments.
Oh, I love it. All right. So what comes to mind, and I will highlight what you're talking about. Well, let's just start there. Again, as a reminder, the perfectionistic overfunctioning is doing more than is appropriate, necessary, and healthy, and trying to get an A+ in all of it. So let me just start there. Whatever you're doing, whether it's in the corporate world or you have your own business or you're writing or you're a creative or you're in entrepreneurial ventures, if you are a perfectionistic overfunctioner, you're going to struggle. It's going to go slow. You're going to make mistakes that devastate you. You know, the opposite of that is embracing failure and being okay with it and not hating yourself and not, waking up in a cold sweat because you blew it. Honestly, if I could change one thing in the lives of, my own early life and the clients that I work with and the course members, it's that they stop themselves. Like, I'll give you an example. There was one client I had today, and she shared with me her list of goals of what she wanted to do. And really, I could have ripped up those goals and just focused on one, which is networking in a way that's going to move you forward. But when you're a perfectionistic overfunctioner, you're scared. What if I blow it? I'm going to speak to a mule. I'm going to, research you for 2 hours. I'm going to write up for another 3 hours the questions up. No, just trust yourself. And it's okay if it falters, you're going to live. It's not the end of the world. So part of this is embracing fear and embracing that you're going to blow it. Mm-hmm. And knowing that anything big you want to do, you're going to not be good at it at first.
Yeah.
So that's that. What was the other part of breaking things down? You mentioned something else.
In terms of identifying the gifts versus talents, you were talking about the impulses versus talents.
Yeah. So I do I do think we're talking gifts versus talents. And this is another thing I just don't see people understanding because we're not taught to look at it this way. But
Mm-hmm.
every single person on the planet has gifts that perhaps a special amalgam of gifts from how they were raised, their ancestry, the trials and tribulations they had, the triumphs things they overcame that makes them very special in certain ways that the other person, any other person, is not. So what we don't tend to do when we're figuring out what do we want to do for a career when we're 20, 25, we don't look at those things about what am I uniquely gifted at. Now, tell me if we talked about this earlier, and I'll make it short. But did I mention, for instance, when I look back on who I was as a young person, I was a singer. I loved to be on stage, all of that. Okay.
You did. You did. Yeah, but I think you can, yeah, build on that. You can repeat
Well, all
that. That's
right.
fine.
Quickly, I was a good writer. I was on the newspaper, right? There were things that I loved and things that were natural talents. The thing is, when you're early on in your life, you don't recognize those easy talents as something that you should even consider leveraging. And even if you could consider leveraging, you don't know how to do it. But what I'm asking
Yeah.
everybody who's listening is to look at those things that come naturally. Like, let me give you an example. I know which one, I know you have a superpower just from the 5 minutes before this call, which was you were asking me about my amazing career certification, coach certification training. How's it going? And immediately you began to focus on how you can help me. You didn't skip a beat. I can tell you that is highly unusual. I mean, most people, when they're listening to someone else, they're thinking about what can I get out of this conversation? What can I learn for me? And here you are brainstorming for 5 minutes who you can introduce me to. That's a special power of yours. So one question would be, okay, I like to help people. Big whoop. Who doesn't? What might you be able to do to either monetize or leverage that? Now, not everything that we amplify is a moneymaker, but
Yeah.
you're a connector, I have a feeling. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't, I definitely want to mention this to you. This is something which I have learned, in my professional sales career, and something which I really abide by is, when selling multi-million dollar deals, sitting in front of big senior executives. When I was, I would say, green behind the ears, I would always go with the mindset when about the close, just go there and sell what this product or solution can do and ask for the close, ask for the signature from the customer. And after multiple failures, what I realized was, and definitely I'm a big fan of Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And one thing which I learned was from that book and from these failures in customer situations was that in a given interaction, I started telling my mind that I have to let the other person talk 70% of the time and just listen and just react. So that has really helped me, because keeping my mouth shut and listening to what the other person talks about, it always helped me connect better with the other person at the human level and figure out an easier way to make the sale instead of, just going with the pitch that I prepared. So, and that's definitely, I love, I think my motto in life is all about just making other people successful. So I always think about what is the smallest thing I can do for this person. And that really gives me a kick. And that's why I think I'm in sales, because I believe that as a salesperson, it's very important to help the other person make the right decision for their business, for their job. So that's what I do. And I really feel good about it. So going back to you, I just wanted to mention that.
No, I love it. I love it because you're approaching sales not as how do I increase my bottom line, but how can I understand their needs and how do I make sure that what I'm selling fits their needs. Like I have a feeling when you know it wouldn't, when you know that the program or service or product you're selling is a terrible fit, you're not going to keep pushing for the sale, I'm guessing. Would you?
Yes, yes, I won't. And in fact,
No, I don't think you could live with yourself. Right?
yeah, because I think it's all about connections. Because once you make a connection with someone and you make them successful as a salesperson, that person will always remember the experience and what you provided them. And that's how, wherever they go, they will always rely on you as a trusted advisor. So
Right.
I always look at, that kind of a relationship instead of just one time sale. And I think that
I
makes
love
a
it.
lot of difference.
Can I just amplify that for a
Yeah.
second? If I'm really honest, I think that why I have a lot of success as a coach, meaning I help people transform, it's two things, two elements. When I'm listening to them, I see where they're broken down, where they don't believe in themselves, when they have communication flaws. But so I can immediately go to the place where there's a gap that needs to be closed. But really more than that, I also love them. I was thinking about our talk before, spirituality, and I think we might have talked about this. I think I know people will roll their eyes, but even if you're in sales or business development or, financial accounting, if you can find a way to love these people and see them in a way they cannot see themselves, you will succeed at what you're trying to help them do. So while I love them with great abundance, I'm also a straight shooter. And, one of my clients said, I know you'll give me that brutal honesty. And I went, brutal? She goes, oh, no, not brutal. But I don't mess around. I mean, if I see on LinkedIn you're not pitching yourself the way you need to, I'm going to say, these are the 10 things that have to change because here's why. But the point is, and I think you're talking about it in sales, I think that what we want to do is make the person feel good about themselves and validate them. I don't mean in a lying way, in a fake way, but I think if you're a salesperson, one of the key things you should do better is, as you're pointing out, listen for how you can validate that individual so they leave feeling better about themselves while also matching what you're saying with something that's going to improve their lives, their work. Do you understand what I mean? It's
Yep.
love,
Yep.
basically.
Yes, I
How do
agree.
I
I
see
agree.
this person bigger than they see themselves?
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree with that. So let's switch on to the. I see that you wrote this 7 power gaps. I think that's part of your that latest book that you wrote,
Yes. Yes.
and definitely all of them are so near and dear to heart when I read about them. So we were just talking about the first power gap, which is not recognizing your talents, abilities, and accomplishments. Uh, you talk about the second power gap, which is communicating from fear and not strength. Can you explain that what it means? Because you were talking about it, embracing the fear and embracing your rawness or unpolishedness, like you were talking about not going, not worrying too much about
Right.
preparation,
Right.
and just
Right.
embracing the uncertainty and fear. Can you
Yeah.
unpack that for
So I,
us?
I want to pull out numbers right here if I could, but let me just give a context. My book is about the 7 damaging power gaps that 98% of women are facing. I
Okay.
don't have enough statistically significant data for men, but out of the 1,200 responses to the survey I have, about 100 men answered these questions. And so 90% of them have at least one of these gaps. So
Mm-hmm.
everyone's got these gaps. But communicating from fear, not strength, is mostly about how women struggle to be assertive, to say what they want, to be forceful, to be confident. So it's about, and this is a societal issue, we are culturally and societally trained not to be assertive. It's just fact. It's not me making it up. There's been so many research studies. And I think we talked before about, we live in a patriarchal world. And what that means is there's an idea of what the masculine is and an idea of what the feminine is. The masculine is we get it done, not vulnerable, not emotional, assertive, makes it happen. The feminine is soft, pleasing, malleable, puts others first. When you're raised in that kind of system, what happens is girls start going underground at about age 12 or 13. And what we're taught is do not sound like a braggart, do not sound overly confident, do not put yourself before others in any way, shape, or form. It's a mess. It's a mess. Now, men, they're also struggling because there's no wholeness there, meaning they're taught not to be emotional, not to be vulnerable. Well, that's damaging to any human being. So we're both suffering, both sides of the equation. But the communicating from fear is that we have to look, women in particular, but men too, all the ways you weaken your message. So research shows that women apologize. They say the words, I'm sorry, exponentially more than men. If you say you're sorry, I'm sorry, could I have this chair? I'm sorry, but I'd like to make a point. You are absolutely, you're invalidating that you have a stance. And if you, for instance, women in meetings will often, have you ever heard of the term mansplaining? Where a woman knows very well what she's saying, but a man will come in and explain it for her or for others as if she didn't say it, invalidating. So what this chapter is all about is helping women and men speak more confidently and with more authority. So it involves, look at the words you use, look at how you're representing or presenting an idea in a meeting. If you go, this might be wrong, but you are telling people not to listen to you. So it's all about, how do we embrace being authoritative with our language while dealing with all that societal fear we have that we're going to sound like it's a swear word. I'm not going to swear, but a biatch. I mean, any high level woman is going to nod her head when she hears me say, we are called the B word when we're doing exactly what our senior male colleagues are doing. And they're getting promoted and we're called something else. I remember one senior VP said to me, wow, you're like a buzzsaw. I said, what's that? What do you mean? He said, you just get it done where other people don't. I'm pretty sure that my male director counterparts were never being called a buzzsaw, ever.
Yeah.
So it's about, how do we watch our language? How do we stand for what we want while mitigating the potential backlash of what I just explained? That's what.
No, this is very helpful. So let's jump on from. There are so many things. This can go on for hours, and there are so many things I can ask you about. But let's start with the future of work. I know you are working with so many of your customers, helping them with their career plans. So what have you seen change in terms of your customers, in terms of how the hiring is done, and in terms of how you are helping them pre and post pandemic? What kind of trends you are seeing?
A big question. So, I just published on LinkedIn, and it was a Forbes post as well, how COVID-19 has dramatically negatively impacted working moms, Black women, and women in senior roles more than men. And it's sobering. It's sobering and scary. A higher number of women now want to leave the workforce than men. 1 in every 4, whereas it's 1 in every 5 men. And if, according to the people I interviewed at McKinsey and Lean In, who did a very big workplace, women in the workplace, if that number comes true, it's 2 million women leaving the workforce, and that impacts gender equality, it impacts diversity, it impacts economic growth. It's very sobering. So, a lot of what I'm dealing with, because I work with mid to high level professional women, is I'm struggling so hard with everything that I'm doing, everything that's on my plate, because the reality is women, even if they're the primary breadwinner, are doing more of the domestic responsibilities. And now those have tripled,
Yeah.
quadrupled. Your kids at
Hmm.
home, the remote schooling, all of it. So I'm working with my clients on how can you manage this differently. Also, we're talking about so many organizations are not going to bring their employees back to the office the way we used to have. It's just not going to
Yeah.
happen. But how do we handle remote work? How do we not be a perfectionistic overfunctioner and actually set up boundaries when in fact we're working from our bedroom? These are
Yeah.
the issues I'm working with. There's another piece about the future of work. I interviewed a woman, Fawn Germer, who is a multiple Pulitzer Prize nominated journalist. Incredible. She's got a new book out. Forgetting the title right now, but I'll let you know what that is. But she interviewed hundreds of people around what has to happen to build your career to the highest level. And she was talking to kind of mid-career people. A lot of people I deal with who are, let's say, 45, 50, 55, are scared to death because they don't have the technical skills and they don't have the digital skills. So what Fawn has talked about is if you think it's just your experience that is going to get you this next job, you're wrong and you're going to fail. It's new skills. It's relevant skills. So what her basic, concept is understand what is needed in your field and go get the additional skills and do it on Coursera, do it on edX, find a certification training. But, that really struck me because I think we do think, well, I'm 50 and I'm experienced and I've had 20 years doing this and that's going to get over. The future of work is changing so fast that you just can't sit back and rely on your experience. You have to be knowing what the technology that changes. Like even if I look at my coaching business, Instagram wasn't even around. If you wanted to reach people, it had to be a mailing list.
Yeah.
So if you don't understand digital marketing, if you don't understand social media, if you're not leveraging LinkedIn, you're losing. So there's just two things that have changed. I think so much is changing in terms of, even using AI to reduce bias in terms of
Yeah.
the hiring process. So much is changing and it's wonderful and it's so needed. But yet, change is slow. Change, big change doesn't happen overnight. It's going to be a process.
That's very helpful. So let's talk about this. Something which I think will help most of the listeners and anyone who is looking for professional growth is, I know pre-pandemic, the hiring process was more about while we were talking in our previous conversation, you spoke about a customer that laid out his or her plans in terms of just monetary gains that he or she was looking for. And then you replied back or helped your customer or your client about looking at the values. And that's how looking at choosing what is the next position or job that person should aim for instead of just focusing on title.
Yeah.
Now, I know that hiring processes and the way people are looking for job hunting has been impacted a lot post-pandemic. And it's not just about the demand and supply. It's also, like you are talking about, the way we communicate and the way we present ourselves is changing. And a lot of people are finding that very difficult, because I know of people who they were impacted by the pandemic, and believe it or not, they are tech savvy executives working for a company for like decades, and overnight they lost their identity, and now they are not sure where to start in terms of job hunting. So I'm sure you are seeing these scenarios with your customers too. So what's your advice to them in terms of their job hunting approach? I know you talked about reskilling. So if you could just maybe simplify it in terms of what like 1, 2, 3 things that they can do on a daily basis if they are looking for a job or their next position, irrespective if they are in a job or not?
Do we have 3 hours? All right, I'll try to keep it. I'll try to do
Yeah.
this the best I can. So even when you say the words job hunting, I cringe. You have, so here's the problem. Someone who's been in a career, I was in a job 11 years. I had a lot of jobs, but when you're in a job that long, a company that long, you're going to struggle because there's a lot of lack of confidence that you are actually going to be competitive. If you're at GE for 20 years or IBM, or I mean, maybe not Google because it's moving so fast, but what I'm going to say to you is this: before you get to this point, so I'm speaking to the people who it might be relevant shortly. Don't look at it as job hunting. Look at it as you need to be engaged in your field, in your career beyond your company. What that means is use LinkedIn. 760 million people, I think, is the latest. Use it, share your thought leadership. I mean, I've said this before, but I can look at someone on LinkedIn and in 3 minutes, I can tell you what is not working with their career and their job hunting and their job search. You've got to show engagement. You've got to build out that profile that you're showing. Now, you said values. I would say something different. Outcomes. What do you care about bringing about? So don't just call yourself a marketing VP. Who cares? It's what. So again, the formula that you have to use on LinkedIn for your headline, and I use LinkedIn, it's a microcosm, it's a metaphor of your career. Do these things on LinkedIn and you're doing them in your career. But don't think of yourself as I'm a marketing director for Merck. No, you want to talk about the functional stuff you do, and if you look at my LinkedIn profile, I suggest everybody do it. I'm following that formula. Finding brave expert, career and leadership coach, educator, speaker and trainer, dedicated to the advancement of women in business. So you want to know what the functional expertise is that you have. For whom do you want to do it? And for what outcomes? So for me, it's professional women. And what are the outcomes? So they can build fantastic careers of significance. If you're not thinking about yourself that way, you're just thinking about a job. And I can just promise you, jobs go away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't think about job hunting. Think about who I am in the biggest way possible. Then look at your future. Where's your trajectory? Where do you want to be? Where do you want to go? And if you're really just looking at, I just need to replace my job, you're not going to really be competitive. So the second thing is start networking, even if you've been in your job 10 years, especially if you've been in your job 10 years and you think listen, I lived the experience of, Kathy, you're going to have a huge, long career here at this company. And then I got laid off, about 3 seconds after the president said that to me. Jobs are not secure. Period. And stop, full stop. The only thing that's secure is what you have inside of you that you offer. Hone that, build that, network with people outside your job, outside your company. Throw yourself into, there used to be industry conferences where we'd go in person, but they're all Zoom now. They're virtual. Throw yourself into the world and show your engagement. And on LinkedIn, show the outcomes that you've created. Do not put tasks. Do not put, I supervise this, I manage this. Oh, good grief. It's what did you create? What did you make possible? Now, if you just really desperately need a job, I need to tell you this. More than 80% of all jobs are not publicly listed. Is that the right number? I think it's more than 70% are not publicly listed and more than 80% are not gotten through applying online. Applying. If you just listen to that number, it means there are so many opportunities that you're never going to see if all you do is search on LinkedIn for jobs. So that's why networking. And what do I mean by networking? I mean, you better have more than 500 connections, reach out to give people recommendations, ask for recommendations. and share your thought leadership. So I was looking at a client earlier today, looking at her LinkedIn profile. Also, you want to appear as if, and of course, obviously, we never want to lie. We want to be authentic. But if you are saying that you're an HR guru and you don't follow one company or one group that is doing incredible cutting edge HR work, how engaged are you really? You're just doing your job. You're not really engaged in the world outside. So look at all those elements that LinkedIn allows and be engaged with other groups. Follow other people who are inspiring 100 steps down the path from where you are, right? And then just start talking to people about, look, here's the idea. I think that maybe there's some, I'm going to be obsolete here in what I'm doing, or I've been laid off or whatever, made redundant. And here's what I'm thinking I want in the future. I think you tell me, because you're probably dealing with a lot of people in this boat as well. I think what's happened is people don't really know how to manage their career. They don't want to. They just kind of wanted a job.
This is a very deep question. So
I know,
can you define
deep, and it's
can you define
like
what do you mean by by career management?
All right. Well, I'll say this. Let me look at myself 20 years ago. I was in marketing publishing. Did I manage my career? Heck no. I waited for the recruiter to call me and say, hey, there's another job. And we know you're a director. This is a vice president job. I got all of them through recruiting, through a recruiter. I only took jobs that were given to me, that someone said, I think you'd be good for it. Never once was I proactive. Never once did I say, let me look at the top 30 companies I'd kill to work for. We don't manage it. We just let it, I don't know, I just need a job. Well, those days are gone, because if you are that kind of person, I don't know, let me just have it flop to me, you're going to miss out. Because recruiters, for instance, are looking at passive candidates who are not actively looking. They're looking for the person who's been at the job, Salesforce, and risen up the ladder. And they're like, we need this person. So they're stealing people away, not stealing, finding great candidates. So the difference between I just want a job and I'm going to manage this is it's a mindset reframe. It's I'm valuable, I'm talented, and I deserve a career that I'm going to love and be proud of, that's going to give me the chance to use who I am in service. But I have to work to perceive it that way, rather than waiting for a recruiter to call or looking online. If you're spending hours looking online and applying, you're just missing the boat. What did I read? Usually something like a typical job posting gets 400 applications and something like 4 or 5 people will be interviewed.
This is so exciting. I'm literally getting goosebumps here. So
is it inspiring or is it demotivating?
Very, very inspiring. So, and I think this is the intention of the Superhuman Project community, to inspire people to become their best version, and then use the strengths, like you talk about, their gifts, to give it out to the world and enjoy the career or the profession they are in, instead of just being pushed from one step to the other. So follow-up question to the career management comment you made. I want to ask, I always talk about switching careers or moving from one business function to another. So what is your message for people who want to manage their career? And let's say they are in a job function, they like it, but they are more inclined towards, let's say, like they are in sales, they are more inclined towards finance or marketing.
Right.
And when internally, I have seen, I'm talking through experience, internally, when you go out and talk to somebody in different business function, they are still looking at you from a lens of what experience you have got.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a mixture of how you position yourself as to what outcomes you can drive in that business function. But what's your advice there in terms of helping people manage their career from one business function to another?
So this is my sweet spot. This is what I do day in and day out. I want a different career. I want a different trajectory. I want to pivot, or I don't even know, but I don't want what I have. What do I do? So I'm going to give you 5 steps. If you want any kind of change in your life, in your career, these are the steps. Number 1, step back for an empowered perspective of who you are and what you want. Usually when we want a career pivot, it's that thing I think we might have talked about. I call it the pendulum effect. We've stayed too long in something and we're broken down and miserable. And what we often want to do is just go, oh, I want to run. So many corporate people go, I just want nonprofit. Why? Because they assume nonprofit is rewarding. However, I have a lot of nonprofit clients who can't wait to get out of nonprofit. Just because it's nonprofit doesn't mean it's rewarding. Or I'm done with corporate and I want to be a therapist, or I want whatever. Or marketing is so boring. What I think I'm interested in is HR. Whatever. You get the idea. So the steps are: step back for an empowered perspective of all you are, all you have to offer. Number 2, you got to let go of the thinking patterns and behaviors that are keeping you stuck in this job and this role. Because if you're miserable and you think everybody's mean, or I'm always being passed over, that's why I want to go do HR, you're going to have that same problem if you're a plumber, an HR director, or a casting director. Okay. Number 3, say yes to your most compelling visions. So what people do that's a mistake, I call it essence versus form. They're not career coaches. So they go, I know I want to go into, a lot of people want to go into digital marketing and they know nothing about it. I just want to do this. Okay. To say yes to your most compelling visions, what you need to look at first is, what is the essence of what I want? For instance, in my career path assessment, which is 11 pages of questions I wish someone had asked me, and all professionals need to take this thing. It'll ask you, what's the list of things you fantasized about doing? And it's all over the place what people offer. Crazy all over the place. I want to start a cocktail bar. I want to be a chef. I want to write a book. Okay, no. You are just grasping at straws here because you think those things will be exciting and rewarding. So what you want to do is say yes to the essence of it. I want more flexibility. I want more control. I want more impact. I want to move the needle on healthcare. Right? But then this is the most important step. You have to explore it and try it on. Before you say, I want to move from marketing to blip or finance to blah, you have to try it on physically, emotionally, behaviorally, spiritually, and financially. So for instance, when I left corporate, when I said the heck with this, and I decided I wanted to be a therapist, I interviewed 5 therapists. I looked at the curriculum. I interviewed the 2 universities I'd get the master's in, and I knew I wanted to study it. The mistake I made, and don't make this mistake, is I just talked to 5 therapists who were rocking it. They were making $100,000. They didn't need to take insurance. They wrote books. Yeah, great. What about the hundreds and thousands of therapists who left the field because they got burned out, or they were broke, or they hated it, or it was traumatizing? So what you want to do is try on the new direction before you say you want it. So you want to go from marketing to HR, interview not just people in your company and not people who know you. People your friend said, yeah, try her. She went to HR and hates it. And then you've got to create it smart, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound goals. So to your point, no one's going to hire, let's say you're a director or a manager in marketing. No one's going to hire you as a manager in HR with no skill. So then you have to find a way to pivot or transition. Maybe you keep your job. I'll never forget, one of my first coaching clients said to me, and that's why I use marketing to HR. She was at a big company that we all know. And she said, I was in marketing and I knew I wanted to go to HR, to work in HR. I asked the HR department, would they fund my transition? Would they pay for my master's while I'm working in marketing so that I can go to HR at that company? I was so floored because never in a million years did I have the confidence to do that in my job, ever. I was a marketing person. And I thought, bravo to you. And she did it. And it was successful. But most companies probably aren't going to fund that. So you have to find a way to get the certification, get the training, get the expertise while bringing in enough money. Or if you're independently wealthy, that's perfect. But most people have to find a way to fund the transition. And there's lots of ways to do it, but you can get, and here's another thing. A lot of people just jump into a master's degree. I don't know. I think I want, what's another field? What's another field? Sales. I want to be a top salesperson. Let me go get an MBA. Let me learn about, I can't tell you many people have spent oodles of money on an MBA and get out and say, oh my, I don't know what to do. I hate this. So don't do that until you've done those 5 steps, because what people are trying to do is escape the miserableness of their corporate lives or their careers, but they haven't done the due diligence to know how to pivot.
This is so very helpful, and I know definitely I'll have to invite you again to continue this conversation. But definitely I want folks who are listening or watching this take so many notes like I did, and there are so many good insights on how to manage our career. So folks who want to find you and work with you, how do they find you?
Thank you for asking. So Kathy Caprino is my main site, kathycaprino.com. You can also check out my podcast, findingbrave.org. And as we were talking about, I have 2 courses. One is the amazingcareerproject.com. It's for anyone who wants more, different, and better in their career. Any women. It's women only. It's my world. And the newest is my Amazing Career Coach certification for anybody who's a coach or a service provider who is working on helping professional women grow. It trains you on everything I'm talking about here, how to help women go deep, shift what needs to be shifted, and build amazing careers. And it also includes my dear friend Matthew Pollard's Rapid Growth Academy, which is about the critical steps you have to take: business development, sales, networking, thought leadership, packaging, pricing, niche development to have rapid growth in your entrepreneurial venture. So that's certification.amazingcareerproject.com.
Yeah. And for the folks who are listening to this or watching this, I would say that if you are at a point in your career where you are looking at, where you realize that maybe coaching or helping other people is your calling, and you want to set up a new business, you like to be an entrepreneur, I think definitely this is something which is worth trying. And with the experts like Kathy and Matthew to learn about how you can help other people find their true calling through this certification course. And also, it's not just about the process of coaching, it's also about the setting up of the business, how to develop your sales pipeline. So everything from A to Z. So definitely you should check this out.
Thank you so much for that resounding endorsement. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. I could talk to you for hours. You
me too,
the
Kathy.
Most interesting questions, I have to say. You really
do. I really enjoyed this conversation, and definitely I have you on my top of the list as a guest that I want to feature every few months, because there is so much to learn from you. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. And everybody, time to find brave, time to manage your career in a way that you can really shine. Thanks again.
Thank you for listening. If you would like to listen to the full episode, go to our YouTube channel or Apple iTunes or Spotify. Go there and search for the Superhuman Project and you will find us. In case you would like to contact us, please follow our LinkedIn page and send us a direct message. Until then, thank you.